My name is Evelyn Foster. I'm 35 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I ended a relationship in the middle of dinner without raising my voice once. Not because of a fight, not because of cheating in the way people expect, but because of one sentence. It's just a heartbeat, Bear. My sister needs it more. That was the moment everything clarified. I live in a 2-bedroom townhouse on the north side of Raleigh. I bought it 4 years ago, after my life split cleanly into before and after. My daughter Lily was stillborn at 29 weeks. Cord accident. One normal appointment, one bad afternoon, and then silence. The kind that doesn't just fill a room, it reshapes you. Her father and I didn't survive it as a couple. There was no betrayal, no shouting, just two people drowning in the same grief, in different directions. We're kinder apart. That matters, because this story isn't about unresolved love or messy triangles. It's about something simpler. A boundary so obvious, I never thought I would have to defend it. When Lily's heartbeat was recorded during the anatomy scan, the nurse saved the audio file for us. A year later, I had it placed inside a cream-colored stuffed bear from a small keepsake shop in Durham. Press the paw, and for a few seconds, you hear her. Fast, light, real. Proof she existed. I don't display it. I don't bring it out for holidays or anniversaries. It stays in a storage box with her ultrasound photos, hospital bracelet, and a tiny knit cap. Safe, untouched. Not for anyone else. I met Daniel Hayes 2 years ago. He was 31, worked in event planning at a downtown hotel. Charming in that effortless way. People leaned toward him without realizing it. At first, he seemed gentle with my grief. The first time I let him hear Lily's heartbeat, he cried. Actually cried. That mattered to me more than I admitted. He moved into my townhouse 8 months ago, and for a while everything felt manageable. Until it didn't. Daniel's younger sister, Kelsey, is 28, 6 months pregnant after 2 miscarriages. About 10 days before everything broke, Daniel asked me something casually, like he was suggesting a new restaurant. Have you ever thought about doing something more meaningful with the bear? I remember pausing, just for a second. I already did, I said. That's why it exists. He laughed lightly. No, I mean sharing it. Something about that word didn't sit right. Sharing how? He leaned back like it was obvious. Kelsey would probably sob if she had something like that in the nursery. I felt the shift then, subtle, but real. No, I said, immediately. He didn't like that. I'm not saying give her Lily's exact bear, he added quickly. They could transfer the sound chip or copy it. My daughter's heartbeat is not a nursery accessory, I said. That should have ended it. It didn't. For the next week, he kept testing the edges. Little comments, carefully worded. Kelsey just needs hope. Maybe something beautiful could come from something sad. One night, he called the bear wasted in a box. I told him if he used that word again, the conversation was over. He smiled like I was being dramatic. That was the first time I saw it. Not cruelty, not exactly, but distance, like he was already reframing my grief into something more convenient. Friday was when it broke. He invited his sister and their mother over for dinner. I didn't know Kelsey was coming until I opened the door and saw all 3 of them standing there. Wine, salad, that practice-it casual energy people use when they've already talked about you in the car. Dinner was normal, for about 20 minutes. Then Kelsey said, Daniel told me about the bear. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. She kept going. I know it's sentimental. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but if there's any way to duplicate the heartbeat, it would mean a lot. I set my fork down carefully. There isn't, I said. Daniel sighed beside me, like I was making things harder than they needed to be. Evelyn, don't do that thing where you shut down the whole room. I turned to him. You told them about something I already said no to. Monica tried to soften it. Maybe we're just talking options. There are no options, I said. Kelsey's expression tightened. I'm not asking for your daughter. Then stop asking for the only thing of hers that still makes sound. That should have ended it. It didn't. Daniel leaned back in his chair, that flat little smile on his face, the one he used when he thought he was the only reasonable person in the room. It's just a heartbeat, Bear, he said. My sister needs it more. There it was. Clean, simple, final. I looked at him for maybe 2 seconds. Then I stood up. Then you can go too. Silence. Kelsey went pale. Monica whispered, Daniel. He laughed. Are you serious? Completely. He stood up too fast, chair scraping the floor. You're choosing a dead heartbeat over living people? That was the moment something in me went still. Not angry, not hurt. Just clear. I walked to the front door, opened it, and said, Dinner's over. Monica moved first. She grabbed her purse, then Kelsey's, quietly urging her toward the door. Daniel went upstairs, throwing clothes into a bag, still talking. Saying I was cold. Saying I loved grief because it gave me control. saying no man would ever feel safe building a family with someone who stayed married to sadness. I didn't respond. At 9:12, he walked out, paused at the door. "You'll regret this by tomorrow," he said. "Be back between 2 and 4 for the rest of your things," I replied. "Bring someone with you." He left. And then something itched. A quiet, wrong feeling I couldn't ignore. I went to the hallway closet, pulled down the storage box, opened it. The bear was gone. For a second, I just stood there, not moving, not thinking, because my brain hadn't caught up yet to what my hands were already confirming. The bear wasn't there. The space where it should have been, soft, familiar, unquestioned, was empty. That was when the calm broke. Not loudly, not in a way anyone would recognize from the outside, but something inside me dropped, hard. I grabbed my phone and called Daniel. He declined. Of course he did. I texted, "Bring it back tonight." 3 minutes later, he replied, "Kelsey just wanted to see it." I stared at that sentence longer than I should have. Then I typed, slower this time, "Bring it back tonight or I call the police." No emojis, no explanations. Just that. At 10:41 p.m., headlights swept across my living room wall. Monica's SUV. Not Daniel. That mattered. She walked up to the front door alone, holding the bear carefully in both hands, like it was something fragile she didn't trust herself with. When I opened the door, she didn't try to come in. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't know he had taken it before dinner." That mattered too, because it meant this hadn't been a spur-of-the-moment mistake. It had been planned. I took the bear from her without saying anything. Closed the door, locked it, and then I pressed the paw. 4 seconds. That was all it ever played. 4 seconds of a life that didn't get to be longer. It filled the entryway like it always did. Clear, fast, unchanged. By 11 o'clock, I had changed the front door code, disabled Daniel's garage app, and started boxing up his things. Neatly, methodically. Clothes in bins, shoes in clear bags, work materials separated from personal items. No anger in the movements. Just finality. At 11:26, my phone lit up. "Daniel, you're acting insane." No response. "You threatened a pregnant woman over a toy." Still nothing. "If you actually loved me, you'd understand why this matters." That one sat on the screen for a while. Then I turned the phone face down, because something had already shifted. If someone loves you, they don't look at the sound of your child and see a gift idea. That thought stayed with me as I sat on the hallway floor, the bear resting in my lap, my back against the wall. Not crying, just still. The next afternoon, right on time, Daniel came back. He brought a friend with him, Taryn. She stood slightly behind him, eyes moving between us, already uncomfortable. I had everything lined up in the garage. Organized, ready. Daniel didn't look at the boxes. He looked at me. "I said one awful sentence," he started, voice controlled. "In a bad moment." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "After taking the bear out of my closet without permission?" He froze, just for a fraction of a second, then recovered. "Kelsey just wanted to hold it." "You took it before dinner," I said, "so the conversation would be harder for me to shut down." That landed. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened. Before he could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. "Evelyn?" a woman's voice said when I answered. "This is Lacey from Little Echo Keepsakes. I'm just confirming your Saturday appointment." "I don't have an appointment," I said. There was a pause. "Oh, I'm sorry. It's for a transfer of an audio insert from one heartbeat animal into a new lamb. We also have embroidery, rose gold thread. I just needed to confirm the baby's name." The air in the garage shifted. "What name do you have?" I asked. "Mila. Kelsey's baby." Of course it was. I closed my eyes for half a second, then opened them. "Can you tell me what email is on the order?" She read it out. "Daniel's." I thanked her, hung up, and looked straight at him. "You already set it up." He started too fast. "It's not like that." I held up my hand. "Don't." Even Taryn took a step back. Daniel tried again, softer now. "They said they could preserve the original file. It wouldn't damage anything." "You scheduled my daughter's heartbeat," I said, each word precise, "to be transferred into a baby shower gift." Silence. "And you thought that was the compassionate version." His expression cracked. "I was trying to do something beautiful." "No," I said. "You were trying to do something useful with grief that isn't yours." That hit. I could see it, because for the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. "I think we should pause," he said after a moment. "A week. Let things cool down before we make anything final." There it was, the pivot, from wrong to reasonable. He blamed pressure, Kelsey's pregnancy, my shutdown, the stress of living with someone who hadn't healed correctly. He said it like it was a diagnosis, like I was the problem he had been managing. "Never healed correctly." as if my job had been to make my daughter easier for him to live with. I didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't defend. I just watched as he loaded the last box into Taryn's trunk and drove away. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Monica. I'm sorry, I heard about the appointment. It was wrong. I stared at the message, because that confirmed something I had already felt. This hadn't been a careless idea tossed out at dinner. It had been a plan. By evening, the messages started. Kelsey first, a long paragraph about how Daniel had only wanted to give her comfort. How if I had any heart at all, I would allow a copy. I blocked her. Then came Daniel's cousin, Sadi. Something about motherhood uniting people. Then Taryn. She had stood in my garage, heard everything. Still, she texted. He's spiraling. You should consider being kind. I replied once. He scheduled the transfer before asking me. She responded with one word. Wow. That night, I drove to Target, bought a small fireproof safe, $119. I came home, placed the bear inside, along with Lily's ultrasound photos, her hospital bracelet, the knit cap, closed it, locked it, set the code, and for the first time since dinner, I slept. The next morning, I went to work. Normal schedule. Emails, meetings, deadlines, and somewhere between a budget review and a supplier call, my manager mentioned he'd be leaving in June. My boss asked if I wanted to interview for senior controller. Better money, better title, bigger team. I said yes, because life doesn't stop just because someone else decides your pain should be repurposed. The escalation started 11 days later, at 2:03 in the morning. My phone was vibrating against the nightstand hard enough to wake me before the sound registered. 6 missed calls. Unknown number. Then a message. Kelsey is at the ER. They can't find the baby's heartbeat. Please answer. For a second, everything in me dropped. Not just emotionally, physically, like the room tilted. I sat up too fast and had to grab the edge of the bed to steady myself. Because that sentence knows exactly where to land, even when you don't want it to. Still, I didn't call Daniel. I called Monica. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was thick with sleep and immediate concern. Evelyn? Is Kelsey in the ER? I asked. Silence. Then, no. Flat, sharp, awake now. I closed my eyes. Thank you, I said. Hung up. 30 seconds later, another message came through. Same unknown number. Daniel. I just needed you to understand how serious this feels to her. That was the moment something changed. Not louder, not angrier, colder. Because there are lines you cross out of selfishness, and there are lines you cross knowing exactly what they mean. He had chosen the second. At 9 a.m., I called an attorney. Her name was Elise. Civil harassment, protective filings, retainer, $1,600. I emailed her everything, screenshots from dinner, Monica's apology, the boutique call log, the fake ER message, the blocked numbers. She called me back before lunch. She's manufacturing urgency to force access, she said. Her voice was calm, clinical, certain. I'll send a cease and desist this afternoon. And she did. No contact. No third-party contact. No claims on the bear or any keepsakes. No visits to my home or workplace. For 3 days. It worked. Then he showed up at my office. Reception called upstairs. There's a man here saying he needs to deliver a family item. I already knew. I told them I'd come down. Because I didn't want this stretched into something messy. I wanted it handled in one motion. He was standing in the lobby holding a pastel gift bag. Like this was normal. Like this was something people did. I brought something for you, he said. I didn't take the bag. What is it? He gave a small shrug. A compromise. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't recognize him. Reception, I said without breaking eye contact. Please call security. That was when he rushed. It's a new bear, he said quickly. Empty. If you let Kelsey have the original recording, you can keep the shell. The shell. That word landed worse than anything else he'd said. Worse than dinner. Worse than the ER message. Because it meant he had reduced it all the way down. Stripped it of meaning completely. I nodded once toward the door. Leave before security escorts you out. He hesitated. Just long enough for the guard to step forward. Then he left. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just gone. I documented everything. Sent it to Elise. Emailed HR that my ex should not be allowed access to the building again. That afternoon, Monica called. She sounded tired. I need you to know, Kelsey didn't ask him to come to your office. I leaned back in my chair. Did she ask for the bear? A long pause. Then, not like this. That was enough, because it told me what I needed to know. This had started small. Pressure, suggestions. But somewhere along the way, Daniel had turned himself into the one driving it. 2 days later, my doorbell camera pinged. 11:14 p.m. I opened the app. He was standing on my porch. No bag. No note. Just standing there. I watched for 30 seconds, then used the speaker. Leave. He jumped slightly, looked straight at the camera. I know you're in there. I know you have a lawyer, I replied. Use one. He didn't move. Instead, he sat down on the step, like he was settling in. That was when I called the police. When they arrived, I showed them the cease and desist. The footage. The messages. They issued a trespass warning on the spot. He cried. Actually cried. Said he just needed closure. The officer didn't react. Closure doesn't happen on someone else's porch after 11 p.m. That was the end of that. Meanwhile, life kept moving. Quietly. I interviewed for the senior controller position. Got it. $8,500 raise. Bigger office. Better problems. Around the same time, I started having coffee once a week with someone named Lucas. I met him through a volunteer fundraiser for infant loss families. There was nothing dramatic about it. No intensity. No pressure. Just easy conversation. The kind that doesn't ask you to be anything other than what you already are. Somehow, Daniel found out. I don't know how. But he did. And that was when he made his last move. A mediation letter from his attorney, claiming he had equitable emotional interest in the heartbeat bear, because he had participated in the preservation process, because he had relied on my verbal commitment to share it with Kelsey, none of which was true. I forwarded it to Elise. She read it, paused, then laughed. Not loudly. Just once. Good, she said. Let him put this in writing. The resolution didn't happen in a dramatic confrontation. No shouting. No slammed doors. No final speech that tied everything together neatly. It happened in a conference room. Beige walls, cold coffee, fluorescent lighting that made everything feel flatter than it actually was. Just over a month after that dinner, I sat on one side of the table with Elise. Daniel sat across from me with his attorney, a woman who looked increasingly tired every time he spoke. By then, the story he was telling had shifted. It wasn't about the bear anymore. Not directly. Now it was about feelings, about how I had overreacted, how I had ended our living situation without adequate emotional process, how I had withheld something that had become, in his words, intertwined with shared family expectations. That phrase sat in the air for a second. Heavy, empty, doing a lot of work for something that meant nothing. Elise didn't respond to it. Not immediately. She started with the easiest part. Documentation. Dinner night texts. Monica's apology. The call log from the keepsake boutique confirming the transfer appointment into a new lamb embroidered with the name Mila. The fake 2:03 AMER message. The office incident. The porch footage. And finally, the mediation letter itself, where Daniel had described the bear as a memory item currently in the possession of Evelyn. Currently in the possession. As if it had wandered into my life. As if it wasn't always mine. As if my daughter had been something we shared. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to, because his attorney saw it. You could see the moment it shifted. Her posture changed. Her questions got shorter, more precise, less committed. Daniel kept talking, trying to reframe, trying to soften, trying to pull it back into something reasonable. But every time he spoke, it got worse. Eventually, his attorney pivoted. Suddenly, it wasn't about the bear anymore. Now it was about transition, housing, the emotional difficulty of the breakup. 1 month of rent he believed he shouldn't owe, because I had made the home emotionally unsafe. Elise slid one more document across the table. A screenshot. You are choosing a dead heartbeat over living people. And then another. I just needed you to understand how serious this feels to her. The fake emergency. That ended it. Not legally, but morally. You could feel it. The room didn't need to argue anymore. Financially, the resolution was simple. I agreed to refund him $420 for utilities he had prepaid for the month after he moved out. Because that part was real. And I wasn't interested in winning by becoming someone smaller. He got nothing else. No claim to the bear. No claim to the recording. No claim to anything that had never belonged to him. No version of shared ownership over a child he had never met, and a grief he had only visited. He cried, shoulders shaking. Head down. I believed he was upset. I just no longer believed that meant he was right. Afterward, in the parking lot, Monica caught up with me before I got into my car. I'm sorry, she said. And for the first time, I believed her without hesitation. I know, I told her. She hesitated, then added quietly. For what it's worth, Kelsey never wanted Lily's actual bear. She just wanted Daniel to stop making everything bigger. I nodded once, because that made sense. This had stopped being about Kelsey a long time ago. Legally, the agreement included no contact. 30 days through attorneys. Then nothing. The trespass warning stayed in place. Elise made it clear. If he crossed the line again, we'd escalate. He didn't. Professionally, I started my new role 2 weeks later. The office was bigger, the work more demanding. The kind of pressure that felt clean. Earned. Personal life. Got quieter. In the best way. Lucas and I still meet sometimes. Slowly. No expectations. No timelines. Just space. On Lily's due date this year, I went to the cemetery in the morning. Same as always. Came home. Opened the safe. Took out the bear. Pressed the paw once. 4 seconds. Same heartbeat. Same daughter. Same truth. That was the part Daniel never understood. A heartbeat recording isn't meaningful because it fits a theme. It isn't valuable because someone else is pregnant and wants a symbol. It matters because for a few seconds, it proves someone was here. Someone existed. Someone was loved before they were even born, and kept being loved after the world went quiet where they should have been. People who haven't lived through that kind of loss like to talk about healing, like it's the same as repurposing. It isn't. Healing is learning how to carry what happened, without letting it rot you from the inside. Repurposing is what people call it when they want your pain to become useful to them. Daniel saw a keepsake and thought function. I saw my daughter. That was always the difference.